In 2019, the Denton's document, Only Adults, Good Practices in Legal Gender Recognition for Youth, was published. The document recommended that activists groups publish progressive legislation proposals before the government developed their own. In their Service Delivery Toolkit from 2021, Stonewall told organisations that going above and beyond the law, the most inclusive services considered gender identity to be a protected characteristic. The Cardiff University Trans Policy states,
"You have a legal right under the Equality Act 2010 to access facilities such as changing rooms and toilets according to the gender with which you identify."
The Denton's document also recommends that activists should avoid excessive press coverage and exposure. In 2019, Cardiff University cancelled a talk to be given by Dr. Kate Godfrey-Fausset and organised by the Muslim Council of Wales. Also in 2019, the LGB Alliance was founded. Its founding was announced by a tweet from Alison Bailey. Veteran activists Kate Harris and Bev Jackson explain their reasons for setting up the organisation.
The problem really emerges in 2015 under the leadership of Ruth Hunt. Stonewall changed its definition from same-sex to same-gender relationships. And when you change sex to gender in that way, you do something very odd, because we support the rights of people whose sexual orientation is to members of the same sex.
Yes.
So two men or two women. If you start talking about gender, and I'm afraid you won't find anybody who can ever define what it means except in some sort of funny circular way, then the whole idea of same-sex relationships disappears. It goes out of the window. How can you stand up for it anymore if you say same gender?
Yes.
And in particular, this was a problem for lesbians, because quite a lot of men were identifying as women and therefore calling themselves lesbians. And this was causing and is causing and has caused enormous problems. And we felt that it was necessary to address those problems.
I might, sorry to interrupt, Kate, but I'll just quickly say I might back this up by showing something I saw today, which is photographs of people on a lesbian dating app. And it's just men. It's just three or four men, you know. Kate, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget, when we began, we knew very little about this. I was actively involved with Stonewall for many, many years and knew Ruth Hunt very well, had a one-to-one conversation with her in, 2015, when she was about to be CEO. I mean, we would have seen each other and we would have discussed this, and other lesbians discussed this issue of adding the T and saying that we didn't want that to happen. But we had no idea of the immensity of what adding the T meant.
Yes.
So I think the thing that really pushed, certainly me, and I think Bev felt the same, the thing that pushed us and the thing that pushed Johnny and the others who were involved in the early days was we found we couldn't discuss this. So there was no freedom of speech around this issue. Now, I hadn't come across that in my life before.
Guardian journalist Owen Jones tweeted,
"If you want to do just one thing to help trans people on Trans Day of Visibility, do this." The so-called LGB Alliance was set up to campaign against trans rights and divide LGBTQ people. Please sign and share this to stop them getting charitable status. Sign the petition.
The initial granting of charity status to the LGB Alliance was controversial, as journalist Josephine Bartosh writes.
The UK wokerati went into meltdown this week, frothing with rage about a new gay rights group. On Tuesday, the Charity Commission confirmed the aims of the LGB Alliance to be beneficial to the public and accepted their application. Had the Society for Eating Puppies been granted charitable status, it would have been much more warmly welcomed. The LGB Alliance sought not to be controversial. Founded by veteran gay rights campaigners, it exists to advance the interests of lesbians, gay men and bisexuals. But the decision of the LGB Alliance not to include the T, those who identify as trans, has seen them branded hateful bigots. This is about as logical as complaining that the Cats Protection League is cruel for excluding dogs.
In 2022, the group Hope Not Hate published an article titled Transphobia and the Far Right, with images of a Nazi swastika and the SS flag. The author claimed that the LGB Alliance is an anti-trans campaign group with links to the far right. Hope Not Hate have a society at Cardiff University and are recruiting for a Wales campaign organiser. In the same year, Will Davies, a politics student at Cardiff University and parliamentary assistant to Plaid Cymru Senedd member Rhys Ab Owen, had an article printed in Labour List. In the article, Davies claimed that the LGB Alliance had links to the far right. The accusation was untrue and subsequently withdrawn, but the extraordinary ad hominem attacks on the LGB Alliance came from all quarters, including Lou Thomas, the chair of the Welsh Government's LGBTQ+ expert panel. In 2022, Bailey won a discrimination and victimisation claim against her employer, Garden Court Chambers, based on her gender-critical beliefs, and was awarded injury to feelings, compensation and aggravated damages. A separate claim that LGBTQ charity Stonewall induced, caused or instructed the unlawful discrimination was unsuccessful. In December 2024, she was granted permission to take her case to the Court of Appeal. In her submission to the Employment Tribunal, Bailey wrote about the time she spent in San Francisco in the 1990s.
I joined a collective that ran the Modern Times bookstore in 1991. It was a renowned institution of the American left. I had a patchy secondary school education, but at Modern Times I was exposed to many of the critical thinkers of the day, many of whom passed through the store to read our latest book, to give lectures, or to just hang out. One of these was the academic Judith Butler, who I met on a few occasions. She lived above the bookshop for a period of time. Her area of study was gender theory and queer theory. In the early 90s, Judith Butler wrote several books that were defying gender identity theory. When I met her, she was new to San Francisco and had arrived to take up a position on the faculty at the University of California, Berkeley. We supplied her work as well as books on gender and queer theory to university departments in the San Francisco Bay Area. I have not read Butler's books, but my understanding of the central thesis underpinning Judith Butler's work is that biological sex is a construct which does not define what it is to be male or female, that, in fact, male and female, and man and woman, are identities based on social norms. A person may very easily identify into either or neither male or female, and be of that identity for all purposes, merely by identifying into it. Essentially, Butler says male and female are merely labels which can be adopted or rejected by anyone. It is a theory that is based on postmodernism and post-structuralism, the idea that a label is not just a reflection of the thing it labels, but that it also changes and defines the thing it labels. Central to Stonewall's trans rights activism is a collection of slogans. Perhaps most crucial of these is the slogan that trans women are women. This is not a shorthand for a more complex or qualified principle as set out above. The slogan means that trans women are literally and for all purposes women. This also does not mean trans women with gender recognition certificate. It means any male that identifies as a woman. It can include a male with a beard, as is the case with Alex Drummond. Accordingly, therefore, according to Stonewall, the definition of the word woman has no relationship with biological sex. It is purely a matter of identity. I believe that this slogan is materially untrue. Women are female and trans women are male. This is extremely important in all areas in which biological sex is important and where the distinction between the sexes matters. A person cannot change their sex. It is written into every cell of their body. In some situations, sex is extremely important.
Included in her evidence to the Employment Tribunal was a message from Alex Drummond, then part of the Stonewall Trans Advisory Group, to her employer, Garden Court Chambers. Drummond requested that Alison Bailey can be dissuaded from a misguided mission and or distance from tarnishing the otherwise good name of your chambers. The Agenda resource for secondary schools links to a resource that explains how children can understand their gender. The resource also references Digon, the support group at Ysgol Plasmawr, and their invitation to self-identified lesbian Alex Drummond to talk to them about his experiences of being a lesbian. Drummond describes how he discovered that he was a lesbian.
I think it's kind of important to communicate the idea of transgender, illustrate the possibilities. I mean, I'd never even heard of transgender before the age of 40, and it was only when I was researching gender theory as part of my master's that I discovered all this amazing science.
Drummond claims that his beard deconstructs gender.
So you're curious about the beard, how? Well, it was kind of an accident. Back in my 30s, I kind of grew it in a bid to man up and get rid of the whole girl thing. But it sort of works because it creates a very explicit transgender. People can read that I've got a male history, but they can also see I present as female. So it kind of deconstructs gender, it queers gender. You know, I spent years trying to pass as male.
In an article for BuzzFeed magazine, Drummond explains how, despite being in a committed relationship, he does draw out the inner lesbian in women. In March 2022, Drummond was appointed chair of the South Wales Police Accountability and Legitimacy Group. In the South Wales Police Transgender Handbook, it states,
"There is much dialogue in current political and ideological circles seeking to divide and prioritise alleged interests of particular groups. According to a recent Employment Appeal Tribunal judgment, the definition is that gender-critical beliefs include the belief that sex is immutable and not to be conflated with gender identity. Gender-critical feminists often cite the argument that the rights of trans people are being favoured over the rights of cisgender women's right to privacy, safety and security. Gender-critical beliefs were ruled to be protected under the Equality Act 2010 in June 2021, as a result of an appeal against the Employment Tribunal. There is increased coordinated movement by those who hold gender-critical views to challenge the approach of policing. We do not wish to contribute to a dialogue that seeks to exclude, and we aim to meet the needs of all individuals served by the South Wales Police. We, as a police force, stand as allies with our trans communities and colleagues, and will always seek to advocate for the human rights of trans and non-binary people. You're likely to hear terms such as TERF, trans exclusionary radical feminist, or FART, feminism appropriating radical transphobe, associated with this debate.
Nancy Kelly was appointed Chief Executive Officer of Stonewall in 2020. The LGB Alliance tried and failed to engage in dialogue. Kelly persistently, insistently and consistently misrepresented the law, even in front of the Women and Equality Select Committee in Parliament.
So the Equality Act protects on the basis of both sex and gender identity.
In 2021, Kelly likened those with a genital preference to sexual racists. In the same year, a number of academics from Cardiff University, largely from the School of Social Sciences, put their signature to an open letter to the Vice-Chancellor.
Dear Vice-Chancellor, we are writing to suggest that Cardiff University's membership of the Stonewall Diversity Champion Scheme should be reviewed. We support the rights of transgender staff and students, yet being associated with Stonewall lies in tension with two of the university's core values. Number one, academic freedom, and number two, respect for the rights of all staff and students, including women. Nancy Kelly, Chief Executive Officer of Stonewall, has likened gender-critical beliefs to anti-Semitism. The core tenets of these beliefs are that sex is real and matters. The motivation for this comparison is to justify Stonewall's long-standing policy demanding no debate on transgender issues. Stonewall's demands have wide-ranging implications across academic disciplines, and the conflict with academic freedom is fundamental. You may be aware of the Rheindorf view into two instances of no platforming at the University of Essex. We draw attention to Recommendation 28. The university should give careful and thorough consideration to the relative benefits and disbenefits of its relationship with Stonewall, bearing in mind the issues raised in this report. In particular, it should consider that this relationship appears to have given university members the impression that gender-critical academics can legitimately be excluded from the institution. The potential effect of this is on the university's obligations to uphold freedom of expression. The effect on university members' understanding of the values of the institution, and the effect on those members of the university who hold gender-critical views. If the university considers it appropriate to continue its relationship with Stonewall, it should devise a strategy for countering the drawbacks and potential illegalities described above. We would also highlight Rheindorf's view that discrimination against dissenting academics may amount to indirect sex discrimination, since women are more likely to be targeted for their expression of such beliefs. Gay men and lesbians are increasingly expressing concern about Stonewall. The recent judgment in the Meyer-Forstater case, stipulating that gender-critical views are a protected characteristic under the Equality Act, also raises questions about the position of Stonewall.
The letter, which I imagine most people would view as entirely reasonable, provoked a storm of outrage. In response to the letter, a leaflet was distributed on campus picturing a woman holding a gun, the names and photos of the signatories, and the caption, "Act Now." The leaflet stated,
"The open letter was a short piece signed by 16 professors and doctors who work at Cardiff University in an attempt to persuade the Vice-Chancellor to cut all ties with Stonewall, a charity which supports LGBTQ+ rights. This was suggested in the middle of Pride Month and specifically related to Stonewall's views on transgender people under the guise of the idea of being gender critical. We're going to pick apart the open letter and explain why most of its talking points don't stem from real concern, but rather transphobic bullshit. The letter argues that being associated with Stonewall lies in tension with two of the university's core values: one, academic freedom, and two, respect for the rights of all staff and students, including women. This is not the case. Stonewall is not suggesting that the academic freedom of university staff and students should be removed. In October 2018, Stonewall said that they themselves will refuse to debate transphobes. Freedom of speech does not extend into forcing others to debate you. The Meyer-Forstater case does not allow you to be a transphobic prick without repercussions. Not gay, as in happy, but queer, as in fuck you.
A student whistleblower then revealed violent threats being made on the Facebook page of the Cardiff LGBT+ Society, including a threat to
weaken their knees manually with a piece of 2x4
and
give them more than weak knees, urge to throat punch people when they're being racist or transphobic. I've literally had to debate with transphobes in seminars before because there's two sides to every argument. Yes. And the two sides are either you're a transphobic asshole or you're not. Everyone deserves respect and we should listen to each other. No, fuck transphobes is my stance. Kiss my ass. We have to explain to this ignorant fuckface what rotational inertia is.
The whistleblower wrote that the messages
contain threats of violence towards yourself and other nastiness from the student community. Not one single person said these messages were wrong. Keep in mind that the LGBT society is one of the largest societies in the university. This is highly concerning as it makes it evident that if you hate this violent rhetoric, you cannot feel comfortable to speak up for fear of being ostracized. Most alarming is that all of the official secretaries of the society are also staying quiet and or directly supporting or propagating this nastiness. I do ask you to not expose my Twitter account, or I will be hounded too.
On 22nd of February 2022, Toby Young from the Free Speech Union wrote to Jeremy Miles.
Dear Mr. Miles, I'm writing to you in my capacity as General Secretary of the Free Speech Union, FSU. The FSU is a non-partisan mass membership public interest body that stands up for the speech rights of its members and campaigns for free speech more widely. This letter concerns a campaign of violent threats and harassment against several of our members and their colleagues, who are all academics at Cardiff University. This has included suggestions from students that they be kneecapped, the distribution of a leaflet on campus with the names and photos of these academics, with the caption "Act Now" and an image of a woman holding a gun, and a public call to destroy the turf menace. Both the university and the police have failed to respond robustly to this orchestrated and prolonged campaign.
No disciplinary action was taken either by the police or the university. In addition to the violent threats, a counter-petition was signed by scores of students, lecturers and alumni.
We, the undersigned Cardiff University students, staff and alumni, wish to register our opposition to the open letter published on the 17th of June by a number of lecturers demanding the university cut ties with Stonewall over the charity's firm support of trans rights. At a time when trans and non-binary people are subject to near-constant inflammatory media attention, when access to life-saving healthcare for trans people has been continually eroded, with LGBTQ plus hate crimes on the rise, and with trans and non-binary people disproportionately likely to experience poverty, unemployment and homelessness, we believe it is more important than ever for Cardiff University to defend the rights of its queer, trans and non-binary students and staff, and to ensure trans and non-binary people feel welcome in all its spaces. The letter asserts that Stonewall's criticism of transphobia is a matter of academic freedom, and that expressing anti-trans views or disputing transgender identities is a protected characteristic under the Equality Act. Among many other disputable claims in the letter, this is a gross misreading of the Equality Act. Transphobic views, like homophobic views, are only protected beliefs. People have the right to hold these views, but universities and other institutions have no duty to protect them from criticism or academic rigor in a democratic society. The right of trans and non-binary people to live their lives as themselves in dignity, safety and peace is not an academic debate of any intellectual or moral merit, and this right does not inhibit the right of cisgender women to do the same.
Lou Thomas, the Welsh Government appointed chair of the independent LGBTQ+ expert panel, was delighted.
So proud of Cardiff University, past and present. Just look at how this list has grown, showing that the trans community are loved, respected, and will be supported during the desperately unpleasant and dangerous attempts to attack and undermine equality.
Also among the many signatories was Gianpiero Molinu, him, chair of Pride Cymru. Pride Cymru are responsible for holding Cardiff Pride, an event generously sponsored by the Welsh taxpayer. In 2022, lesbians who don't believe that Alex Drummond is literally a lesbian staged a protest. Using Stonewall's 2017 definition of transphobia, Gianpiero Molinu accused the protesters of being motivated by hate. Lou Thomas, Welsh Government appointed chair of the independent LGBTQ+ action panel, was even more scathing.
They turn up to spoil an event with their exclusionary, backward bigotry, and then pretend they're the ones being excluded.
Talking about the influence of queer theory on public policy in Wales has been made almost impossible.
Well, Llywydd, my starting point is the same as Penny Mordaunt, the UK minister responsible at the time, who said that the UK government's starting point was that transgender women are women. And that's my starting point in this debate.